Historically, when American higher-ups start visiting or concentrating on a country, it gets bewitched in sectarian or tribal wars. Annals of history are replete with such examples. The entire Middle East, enmeshed in sectarian conflagration, is a flagrant example of American carioles. 1. Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Somalia, Chechnya, Ukraine, Yemen, Lebanon, and now even Turkey, all are galloping with such ailments. For the West, spearheaded by the USA, it is the prelude to New World Order, synonym, global, or greater me, hence countries are kept malleable to their whims, normally by milder control on the money, ammunition and technology supplies. Sectarian/tribal conflict stratagem is a new, severely pernicious, addition to the malleability or re-invasion/intervention toolbox. A hard nut to crack is dealt with severer blow of all-enveloping sanctions. One still, not budging, Iraq and Syria, is dealt with severest defrocking treatment by direct or proxy military intervention. Sectarian conflict stratagem was first used by Saudi Arabia in Pakistan. Then the USA tried it in Iraq, mainly as an after-invasion management technique. Now it is being used, synonym of British doctrine, divide and rule, as malleability or pre-intervention stratagem. This thesis is not merely a page from conspiratorial theories tabloid, but about applied doctrines, revealed in several declassified CIA documents. Middle East, crescent of crisis. A recently declassified secret U.S. intelligence report, written in August 2012, which uncannily predicts, and effectively welcomes, the prospect of a Salafist principality in eastern Syria and an al-Qaeda-controlled Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. In stark contrast to Western claims at the time, the Defense Intelligence Agency document identifies al-Qaeda in Iraq, which became ISIS, and fellow Salafists as the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria, and states that Western countries, the Gulf states and Turkey were supporting the opposition's efforts to take control of eastern Syria. Raising the possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist principality, the Pentagon report goes on, this is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want, in order to isolate the Syrian regime, which is considered the strategic depth of the Shia expansion, Iraq and Iran. Which is, pretty well exactly what happened 2 years later. The report isn't a policy document. It's heavily redacted and there are ambiguities in the language. But the implications are clear enough. A year into the Syrian rebellion, the US and its allies weren't only supporting and arming an opposition they knew to be dominated by extreme sectarian groups, they were prepared to countenance the creation of some sort of Islamic State, despite the grave danger to Iraq's unity, as a Sunni buffer to weaken Syria. U.S. forces led by General Petraeus sponsored an El Salvador-style dirty war of sectarian death squads to weaken the Iraqi resistance. And it was reprised in 2011 in the NATO-orchestrated war in Libya, where ISIS last week took control of Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. In reality, USA and Western policy in the conflagration that is now the Middle East is in the classic mold of imperial divide and rule. American forces bomb one set of rebels while backing another in Syria, and mount what are effectively joint military operations with Iran against ISIS in Iraq while supporting Saudi Arabia's military campaign against Iranian-backed Houthi forces in Yemen. However confused U.S. policy may often be, a weak, partitioned Iraq and Syria fit such an approach perfectly. South Asia, crescent of crisis. In South Asia, a similar strategy, between Ghani, Abdullah Koch's partnership, while both at loggerhead and archenemy Taliban, is being used. Short-term goal of the U.S. seems to create conducive circumstances for evacuating its forces and equipment. Pakistan, in a self-delusional role of peacemaker, is being used, due to its affinity with the Taliban, to facilitate dialogues between Afghan government and Afghan Taliban. America, in pursuit of its short-term goal, has absolutely disregarded its strategic partner India's annoyance and humiliation. There have been two very interesting developments in the region, which Western media, albeit, as usual, is angling to its advantage. Mullah Omar, Taliban leader, died 2 years ago. This news, despite being in the know of several agencies, was kept from the public very effectively. All of a sudden, while dialogues were ongoing, this news was leaked by the UN Snugly Afghan agency in the absence of Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. There are several notions circulating about it. The first one is that Pakistani politicians maneuvered this leak to check the Pakistan Army's crackdown on their corruption, in which almost every politician, including PM Nawaz Sharif and his finance minister, is involved. The second one, which seems more plausible, is that India, immensely perturbed by the American recalibration coupled with Pakistani military's recent moves, which greatly disadvantaged Indian strategic depth in the region, has worked it out in cahoots with Afghan Secret Services Agency NDS. Its immediate fallout is the derailment of ongoing dialogues, ensuing of a power struggle among Taliban factions, pushing a flock of Taliban to his folds. India, with American implicit blessings, made a sizable investment in Iran and Afghanistan in pursuit of a permanent foothold, which is being jeopardized due to the American shift. This leak seems to have served Indian objectives very well. Another development is that Islamic State has been inducted into the area while prominent Taliban joining their ranks. This news leak, causing dissension in Taliban ranks, has resulted in Taliban flocking to join IS has brazenly shown its presence with several killings by blasts. According to some sources, this move has been orchestrated with Western, Israeli and Indian blessings. All three have their reasons, such as a check on Iran, Mullah Omar's faction and continued mayhem in Pakistan. Affording a sanguine look to the situation, however, IS might not find a breeding ground in Afghanistan, Iran or Pakistan as it did in Iraq and Syria. In that region, an element of discontentment, despair and resentment and shunted out of the system Sunnis was a very potent factor. In Pakistan, Iran and Afghanistan there is no such deep crater. It might, however, be an irritant in general and to Shia Iran in particular. It would, on the other hand, certainly be able to inflict a severe blow to Indian sovereignty. The elements of despair, discontentment and subjugation very much exist here. For Times of India, 174 secessionist groups are already operating in 13 of its states. Honestly speaking, it can be said with all certainty that India, if involved, has played its hand devastatingly erroneously. East Africa. Kenya, with a very low human development rate, having 12% Muslim population including Shias and a tribal mix of more than 10 tribes, could be a breeding ground for sectarian or tribal conflicts to exploit its resources. China's growing influence in Africa is the catalytic imperative necessitating President Obama's visit. China ranks top on the direct investment and import chart of Kenya. Ethiopia, Horn of Africa. President Obama, surprisingly, after being shellacked in his fatherland Kenya, abstained from propagating gay rights in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has a mix of all three major religions comprising 33% Muslim population and about a dozen tribes with their own distinct languages. A deep-rooted tribal and interregional disharmony exists, especially due to historical baggage with Eritrea and Somalia. Although the Ethiopian economic situation is better than Kenya, yet it is more prone to sectarian, tribal and regional conflicts. At present it is sort of helping Somalia, fighting al-Shabaab militant group, who is wreaking havoc in several contiguous countries. It may not dissipate the deep-rooted historical animosity between them. Chinese-run Ethiopian oil field Ogaden. Other than this, Chinese footprint in Ethiopia, up until now, is limited. There are few countries, in particular, which sure need to be wary of being bewitched sooner or later. Pakistan, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, other sheikdoms, with huge income disparity, may disintegrate for indigenous reasons since they are artificially fabricated family-owned entities. Pakistan would remain most vulnerable unless Pakistan Army remands and redraws the political landscape. Saudi Arabia cultivated nothing but adversaries, hence would be lucky to survive unscathed. Iran very smartly has embarked on a prosperous journey by negotiating a nuclear deal with the West. Turkey, on the other hand, has made a blunder by jumping in the West-orchestrated fray. It would take the whole town for it to extricate itself from this Bathabalagic 2 zone. It has nothing to lose but to gain, even if it could retain a few mile-long stretches of land. India, a house of cards, seems at the brink of balkanization. It may implode in domino effect fashion, for all natural and human forces are working against it. The future seems to belong to the USA and China as leading powers. Second tier may include Russia, Japan, and Europe. The third tier would include Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and Nigeria. Rest would fall in the fourth tier. Explanations. 1. Two players sitting on the edges of a fast moving round swing frolicking with a ball that never falls in the hands of the designated recipient due to antipodal, centrifugal, force. Deliberate wickedness. 2. Bathel zone of the ocean 3,300 to 13K foot deep with extreme side pressure. Read https://shakir2.wordpress.com/2019/07/24/ the singularity of the Grand Tahrir Square on the eventual horizon/ Save Rohingya for Palestinian and Kashmiri Muslim from state-sponsored genocide. Reclaim Africa, a Muslim continent. Comment/feedback/like/share/follow